The first cool breath of the Olympic temperate rainforest touches your face beneath the hanging moss. And we begin where the ferns gather rain in their open green hands. Settle in and let the forest take its time around you. You can hear water before you see it, a soft running somewhere beyond the trunks, folding itself over stones and roots and fallen cedar. The air smells of wet bark, old needles, and soil that has been dark for a very long time. Here in the Olympic temperate rainforest, life doesn't hurry toward you. It waits quietly, layered in shadow and green. We move slowly beneath the western hemlocks and Sitka spruce, where the canopy holds the low clouds like a second sky. Rain has passed through here so often that every surface seems to remember it. The trunks are wide and furrowed, cool if you were to rest your palm against them, and the moss lies over them in thick, patient folds. You notice how sound is softened here, as if the forest has lined itself with velvet. This is a place shaped by water coming from the Pacific, carried inland as mist, rain, and cloud. The Olympic Mountains rise not far from here, and as wet air climbs their slopes, it cools and releases itself into the valleys. That steady giving of rain feeds the roots, the streams, the lichens, the fungi, and the quiet animals moving through the undergrowth. We're not entering a wilderness of spectacle, but one of persistence. At first you may notice the trees most clearly, because they make the walls and ceiling of this world. Sitka spruce lift their heavy limbs into the fog, and western red cedar leans with a slow grace that feels almost tidal. Big leaf maples spread broad arms over the forest floor, their branches carrying whole gardens of moss. In the Olympic temperate rainforest, even a tree can become a landscape. You start to notice the small lives next, the ones that don't announce themselves from far away. A banana slug moves along a damp leaf, gold and unhurried, leaving a silver trace behind it. A beetle works beneath loosened bark, hidden from the gray light. Somewhere close, a wren gives a soft note, then folds itself back into the greenery. The forest is full, but it's rarely loud. As we follow the trail deeper, the ground under you feels springy, built from needles, leaves, wood, and years of gentle decay. Nothing here is wasted. Fallen trunks become nurse logs, and nurse logs become long raised beds for seedlings, mushrooms, huckleberry, and tiny hemlocks. You can see a young tree rooted on the body of an old one, its roots reaching down like quiet fingers. Life here rises from softness. The science of this place is simple at first, and then wonderfully intricate. Moisture slows fire, decay feeds soil, shade protects seedlings, and fungi thread through the ground in hidden partnerships. Mycorrhizal networks link roots with nutrients, helping trees draw what they need from earth that is often washed by rain. You don't need to picture anything dramatic. Picture only a slow exchange, root to fungus, fungus to soil, soil to tree. The Olympic temperate rainforest holds animals that move through this exchange like thoughts moving through sleep. Roosevelt elk browse in the understory, their bodies large and calm among sword ferns and salmonberry canes. You might hear them before you see them, a shift of wet leaves, a branch easing back into place. Their trails press through the green, used again and again, as if the forest remembers their weight. Black bears live here too, though our way of seeing them remains quiet and distant. In late summer, they may feed on berries near forest edges, turning huckleberry and salal into strength for the colder months. Along salmon streams, they help carry ocean nutrients inland, because fish that return from the sea become food for bears, eagles, insects, roots, and soil. Even the deep forest has a tide within it, and as we move farther beneath the canopy, the rainforest grows dimmer, and the lives around you become more woven into moisture and shadow. The Olympic temperate rainforest is not a single green room, but many small rooms nested together, each one holding its own damp breath. Beside a stream, the air turns cooler, and the stones shine as if they've been polished by time. Ferns lean toward the moving water. Moss thickens on every fallen branch. You hear the stream changing its voice from ripple to murmur, then to a deeper hush under a cedar bridge. In places like the Hoh, the Queets, and the Quinault valleys, salmon enter from the ocean, and bring the far Pacific into the forest's body. Coho, Chinook, and chum may return to gravel beds, guided by scent and memory through water dark with leaves. We stand back from them in the mind, giving them room. Their movement is purposeful, but the forest receives it calmly, without ceremony. The stream simply carries return. You can imagine the salmon resting in pools where roots lace the banks and rain dimples the surface. Their bodies move against the current with a steady patience, and their presence feeds more than the animals who take them directly. When salmon die after spawning, their bodies enrich the stream and the forest around it. Nitrogen from the sea can enter leaves, wood, insects, and soil. The ocean climbs into the trees very slowly. Beside these waters, the American dipper may appear as a small gray shape on a stone, bobbing gently before slipping into the current. It walks underwater, using its wings against the flow, searching for aquatic insects among the gravel. You can picture it there beneath the clear brown water, firm and delicate at once. Even in the moving stream, the bird belongs to the quiet. The stream's edge is also a place of tracks, even when the animals themselves are unseen. Elk hooves press soft shapes into mud. A river otter may leave a smooth slide on a bank, where wet fur met wet earth. Raccoon-like prints may appear near shallow water, made by small searching paws, but we let the sign remain softer than the animal. Here, evidence is often enough. The Olympic temperate rainforest teaches you that a living place doesn't need to reveal everything at once. It can offer a feather on moss, a bent fern, a half-heard splash, and still feel deeply present. You breathe with it for a while. The smell of cedar deepens after rain. The stream keeps speaking under everything, as if it is telling the roots to rest. Above the stream, lichens hang from branches in pale green threads, absorbing moisture straight from the air. They are partnerships too, part fungus and part photosynthetic life, growing slowly where the air stays clean and wet. In this forest, even stillness is doing work. Lichen feeds some animals, shelters small invertebrates, and catches droplets of fog until they fall into the moss below. The smallest curtains help water move. When we lift our gaze again, the canopy seems farther away than before, not because we have descended, but because the forest has become taller in our attention. The great trees gather cloud and shade. Their needles break rain into finer rain. Their roots hold banks and slopes, making room for streams to curve. Every height is connected to every low place. You can feel that connection as balance. And below the streamside hush, we move into the older shade, where fallen wood lies like slow green islands across the forest floor. Here, in the deeper interior of the Olympic temperate rainforest, the nurse logs are among the most peaceful presences you can imagine. A fallen spruce may stretch across the ground for many years, softening from the inside while moss and seedlings take hold along its back. You see the line of tiny trees growing from it, each one lifting toward dim light. Their roots eventually reach around the log and down into earth. The forest floor smells rich here, like wet leaves, mushrooms, and dark wood. Your steps would sink slightly if you left the trail. Though we stay where we belong and let the floor remain intact, the light arrives filtered and green, broken by layers of fern and branch. Water sits in hollows, trembles on needles, and gathers along the edges of leaves before falling with a sound almost too small to name. Fungi live everywhere in this quiet layer. Some send fruiting bodies up through moss, pale, brown, orange, or ghostly white. Others remain hidden as threads in wood and soil, breaking down cellulose and lignin with patient chemistry. We often think of life as growth upward, but here, much of life is release, return, and transformation. A log becomes food, shelter, moisture, and seedbed. Decay becomes generosity. You may see shelf fungi growing from a trunk like soft steps for no one to climb. You may see tiny mushrooms clustered in the seam where bark meets moss. Their shapes are delicate, but their work is steady. They open wood that would otherwise remain locked away, allowing beetles, springtails, mites, roots, and microbes to share in its stored energy. The rainforest is built by trees, but also unbuilt by fungi. In the damp litter beneath the ferns, rough-skinned newts and salamanders may move in quiet weather. The Olympic Peninsula is known for amphibian life because wet forests protect soft skin and shaded streams hold cold water. A salamander doesn't need a grand path through the world. It needs moisture, cover, and time. You can picture one beneath a leaf, breathing through its skin, living close to the Earth's slow pulse. There are also snails, slugs, spiders, millipedes, and countless small lives that make the forest floor feel inhabited without ever making it busy. The banana slug is especially at home here, feeding on leaves, fungi, and decaying matter. Its body shines with moisture, and its pace matches the hour. Watching it, you remember that movement doesn't need to be fast to be complete. The Roosevelt elk leave signs in this layer too. Sometimes their browsing shapes the young growth, opening small pockets in the understory. Sometimes their bodies pass between trunks in mist, their coats dark with rain. They are large animals, but they can disappear into the green with surprising ease. The forest doesn't hide them in a dramatic way. It simply makes room for quietness. When we rest our attention on this fallen wood, we can feel the deep patience of a temperate rainforest. A tree may live for centuries, fall in a storm, and then spend centuries more giving itself back. Its second life may be as important as its first. Seedlings rise from it, insects tunnel through it. Fungi soften it, moss turns it into a small raised meadow. Nothing is finished quickly here. And as the old logs sink slowly into the soil, we move with them into the green understory, where leaves hold rain and small birds keep their hidden circuits. The Olympic temperate rainforest closes around you gently in the understory, where sword ferns spread their fronds like long green feathers. Salal grows in glossy thickets. Salmonberry canes reach toward openings where light has found a way through. The air is cool against your face, and it carries the faint sweetness of crushed leaves after rain. Somewhere above you, a drop falls from leaf to leaf before touching the ground. This middle layer shelters birds that move by sound as much as sight. Pacific wrens sing from low tangles, their voices intricate and bright, then vanish again among roots and ferns. Varied thrushes may call from deeper shade, a single flute-like note that seems to hover between tree trunks. You don't need to follow them. You can let their songs pass through the green air and settle into stillness. The birds here are part of the forest's quiet circulation. They eat insects, spread seeds, glean from bark, and move through branches in patterns older than trails. Chestnut-backed chickadees search the conifers in small, busy groups, but even their motion feels softened by moss and mist. A pileated woodpecker may work at dead wood, opening places where insects live and where future cavities may shelter other creatures. When you hear a woodpecker in this forest, the sound doesn't break the calm. It becomes part of the room. The tapping travels through wet wood and air, then fades among the trunks. Dead trees, called snags, remain standing for years, and they are full of use. Birds nest in them. Beetles feed under their bark. Fungi enter through scars. Life gathers around what is no longer green. The science of the understory is shaped by light, and there is not much of it. Above us, the canopy catches most of the sun, so plants below must live with patience. Ferns and mosses are very good at this. They spread wide surfaces, wait for filtered light, and use moisture as a constant companion. In the Olympic temperate rainforest, shade isn't emptiness. It's a slower kind of day. You may notice how leaves here are often broad, dark, and glossy, ready to catch any brightness that slips through. After rain, they shine as if lit from within, though the sky remains gray. Huckleberry bushes grow from nurse logs and rotten stumps, their roots finding softness where other plants might not. In summer and autumn, their berries feed birds, bears, small mammals, and insects. Deer mice may move at night through this layer, gathering seeds and sheltering beneath roots. Shrews search among damp leaves for small invertebrates, guided by scent and touch. Their lives are quick in motion, but they belong to the same slow system. Even a rapid heartbeat can be held inside a quiet forest. You can imagine them passing under fern shadows while the rain continues above. The Olympic temperate rainforest is often described by its great trees, but the understory gives the forest its feeling of nearness. It brushes softly at the edges of your vision. It holds droplets close to your knees. It makes the world feel layered, like sleep arriving in gentle stages. We move through it without disturbing it, listening for small wings and the almost silent shifting of leaves. And as the understory thickens behind us, we let our attention rise again, following the moss upward into the high branches where another forest lives above the forest. In the canopy of the Olympic temperate rainforest, life gathers far above the wet trail, where moss covers branches thick enough to hold water and soil. Big-leaf maples are especially rich with hanging gardens, their limbs wrapped in green mats that can support ferns, lichens, and tiny invertebrates. From below, the branches look ancient and gentle. They seem to be wearing the weather itself. Rain reaches this upper world first, touching needles, leaves, bark, and moss before it ever reaches the ground. Fog drifts through it slowly, leaving moisture behind. The air up there is cooler and more exposed, but still sheltered by the forest's own breath. Birds move across this lifted terrain, and insects live in the damp pockets among epiphytes. You can think of it as a second floor of green. Epiphytes are plants or plant-like organisms that grow on other plants without taking food from them. Mosses, lichens, and licorice fern can live on branches where enough organic matter has collected. They don't need soil in the usual sense. They need a place to hold moisture, catch light, and wait. In this forest, waiting is a form of abundance. Marbled murrelets have a special connection to old coastal forests like these, though they spend much of their lives at sea. Unlike many seabirds, they nest on wide, mossy branches in mature forests, sometimes far from the shoreline. You can picture a small, quiet bird returning from salt water to deep green shade, carrying the ocean in its body and choosing a branch softened by moss. The sea and forest meet again. Owls may also move through the high dimness. A northern spotted owl, where habitat remains suitable, hunts in older forest structure with layered canopies and standing dead trees. We don't turn this into drama. We only notice how a forest with age gives many kinds of shelter. Cavities, broken tops, fallen logs, open flight paths, and shadowed perches all matter. Complexity becomes home. The canopy also changes the weather beneath it. Needles and leaves slow the rain, so instead of striking the ground all at once, water arrives as mist, drip, and thread. During dry spells, moss can hold moisture like a sponge. During wet months, branches release water slowly, feeding the air below with a steady dampness. The whole forest moderates itself, breathing water in and out. You may feel this as a softness in the soundscape. Rain on an open field can be sharp, but rain in this rainforest becomes layered and low. It lands first above you, then again below, then again from fern to moss to duff. The forest divides each drop into many smaller arrivals. Your own thoughts can do the same, breaking apart into gentler pieces as we move. From the canopy down to the root zone, everything is connected by falling matter. Needles fall, leaves fall, twigs fall, moss breaks loose in storms. Insects drop from branches, and birds follow food through the green architecture. Gravity works here with great kindness, carrying nutrients downward in no hurry. The forest is always descending into itself, and always rising again, and as our gaze drifts down from the high moss and shaded perches, we come toward the animal paths where the larger lives pass quietly between rain-dark trunks. The animal paths are narrow and almost hidden, pressed through fern and sallow by feet that know the wet ground better than we do. You can imagine stepping only with your attention, not your body, following the softened line where elk have passed between cedar roots. The air is cool here, and the smell of damp hair, crushed leaves, and mineral soil seems to linger after rain. In the Olympic temperate rainforest, a trail can be made without any hurry, one careful passage after another, until the forest accepts it as memory. Roosevelt elk are among the quiet giants of this place, and their presence changes the understory in ways you may feel before you understand. They browse young shrubs, strip leaves, open passages, and press their weight into river terraces where grasses and sedges gather. When we picture them moving through morning mist, We don't need grand motion, only a dark shoulder easing past a mossy trunk. Their lives are large, but the forest makes even largeness seem gentle. A herd may rest in an open wet meadow near the river, with breath showing faintly in the cool air. Calves stay close, cows lift their heads, and the damp grass bends slowly under them. The sound is mostly chewing, shifting, and the soft pull of plants from the ground. You can feel how the rainforest holds them without surprise, as if it has always made room for bodies this steady and warm. Black-tailed deer move more lightly through the same green world, stepping through openings where light reaches the lower leaves. They feed on shoots, berries, and tender growth, often at edges where forest and meadow meet. You may notice their ears first in the mind, alert and dark-rimmed, then the narrow shape of a body half hidden by fern. They belong to the smaller motions of the Olympic temperate rainforest, the ones that appear and fade like mist. Their browsing shapes the young plants too, though softly and unevenly. A forest is never a still picture, and each mouthful becomes part of its slow design. Seedlings that are tasted may branch differently. Shrubs may thicken, and open places may remain open a little longer. We move beside this idea calmly, because nothing here is separate for long. The deer, the leaf, the soil, and the rain are all part of one breathing. There are black bears in these valleys as well, mostly private and practical in their movements. In spring, they may feed on fresh green plants near streams and wet openings. Later, they may turn toward berries, insects, and salmon, following seasonal abundance through the forest like a quiet calendar. You can picture a bear nosing through huckleberry, its fur dark with drizzle, while the canopy lowers the sound of rain around it. A bear walking away through wet salal can seem to dissolve into the forest. The leaves close after it. The moss takes the sound. The scent of crushed vegetation remains for a while, then blends back into cedar, fungus, and rain. In the Olympic temperate rainforest, even an animal with such strength can become part of the shade, not hidden by fear, but softened by place. The lives of predators here are also woven gently into the whole. A bobcat may pass through a clearing at dusk, low and quiet, following the movement of rodents and birds through the understory. A cougar may use ridges, river bottoms, and old paths, seldom seen and deeply at home. We don't need to sharpen the scene. We can let these animals remain mostly unseen, as the forest itself often knows them. To live here is to read scent, sound, and pressure through wet air. Mammals leave information on logs, rocks, bark, and trails, communicating across hours and seasons without speech. You may imagine the forest as a vast, damp book, written in musk, paw print, broken fern, and the faint polish of repeated passage. We are only visitors to that language, and there is peace in not needing to translate every sign. As we follow these animal paths farther, the ground begins to tilt toward water again, and the forest opens into places where river light moves across trunks. The Olympic temperate rainforest is never far from flowing water, even when the stream is hidden. You can hear it through layers of leaves, a steady murmur below the wrens and dripping moss. The air grows colder near channels, and your breathing may slow to match that low, continuous sound. River corridors are roads for life, but not the hurried kind. Elk cross them where gravel bars spread wide. Bears follow them when salmon return. Otters travel along their edges, slipping between pools and banks with bodies made for water and patience. Even fallen trees become bridges, filters, and shelter, lying across currents as the river gathers foam and leaves against their bark. In these streams, salmon do more than pass through. They connect ocean, river, forest, insect, bird, mammal, and tree in one slow circle. When they return from salt water, their bodies carry nutrients gathered far away, and when those nutrients enter the watershed, the forest receives a gift from beyond its own valley. We stand beside this quietly, because the idea is large and tender. The sea feeds the moss. Young salmon grow in cold, shaded water where roots overhang the banks and gravel holds oxygen around eggs. The canopy keeps the stream cool, while fallen logs make pools and slow places where small fish can rest. You can picture them in the brown-green light, flickering under the surface like little shadows with silver edges. They are part of what lives in the Olympic temperate rainforest, though they are also already dreaming downstream. Aquatic insects share this cold water with them, clinging to stones, leaves, and submerged wood. Mayfly nymphs, caddisfly larvae, and stonefly nymphs live under the current, feeding, growing, and waiting for their own transformations. Some build cases from sand or plant fragments, tiny portable shelters held together with silk. If you were to kneel near the stream, you might see only clear water, but beneath it there is intricate work. When those insects emerge, birds gather the offering. Dippers hunt below the surface, flycatchers take winged insects from the air, and swallows may appear where openings allow them room. The stream feeds the sky in this way, lifting small bodies from water into flight. Nothing about it needs to be hurried. The river simply keeps making crossings between forms, while we listen to its patient movement over stone. Salamanders also depend on this constant wetness. Some live near streams, others in rotting logs and leaf litter, moving most easily when the air is saturated and cool. Their skin is delicate, and the rainforest protects that delicacy with shade, moss, and endless damp. You might imagine lifting your gaze from a stream bank to a fallen cedar and knowing there are hidden lives within the softened wood, breathing slowly in the dark. The Olympic torrent salamander is tied closely to cold, clear mountain streams on the Olympic Peninsula. It lives in splash zones, seeps, and fast, clean water, where the stones remain wet and oxygen-rich. We mention it gently, not as a rare jewel to be collected by the mind, but as a reminder that some lives are shaped to the exact feeling of a place. Cold water, stone, shade, and skin become one quiet answer. Farther from the stream, Ensatina and other forest salamanders may move under bark, moss, and fallen leaves. They hunt small invertebrates and avoid drying air, living in a world where moisture is shelter. Their pace suits the rainforest. A small turn of the head, a slow step, a pause beneath fern shadow. You can feel how little space a creature needs when its world is complete within a few feet of moss. And as we leave the open sound of the stream, the rainforest draws us back beneath heavier branches, where wet bark holds many smaller lives close to the trees. The trunks rise around you like columns, though the forest never feels built. It feels grown, softened, and aged by rain. Every furrow in the bark has its own darkness, and every darkness may hold an insect, a seed, a thread of fungus, or a resting spider. Bark is habitat, not just covering. It cracks, flakes, gathers moisture, shelters eggs, and gives foothold to lichens and mosses. Brown creepers move along it in delicate spirals, probing with curved bills for insects hidden in the ridges. You may see one as a small piece of bark come alive, climbing upward, then dropping to the base of another tree to begin again. Its life is written in vertical circles. Nuthatches move differently, sometimes headfirst down trunks, seeing the bark from an angle other birds don't use. Chickadees search twigs and needles, calling softly to one another as they move through the canopy in loose winter flocks. The forest gives each bird a different way to read the same tree. One searches cracks, one searches cones, one searches dead limbs, and together they make the tree feel more spacious than it looks. Woodpeckers add their own slow engineering to the Olympic temperate rainforest. A pileated woodpecker may open a rotting snag to reach carpenter ants, leaving deep rectangular marks in the softened wood. Smaller woodpeckers make nest cavities that later serve other birds and mammals. This is how one life prepares a room for another without meaning to. The forest is full of unplanned kindness. Insects inside dead wood are not merely food. They are part of the great return, breaking down the tough bodies of trees and making passageways for water, fungus, and air. Beetle larvae chew beneath bark. Ants tunnel through punky wood. Mites and springtails move through damp fragments too small for us to notice. If you listen closely in the imagination, the fallen log is not silent, but softly occupied. Spiders wait in many of these places, their webs catching moisture as well as prey. In the morning, a web between fern tips may hold beads of water, each one reflecting a small grey piece of sky. The spider itself may be hidden under a leaf, feeling the line more than seeing the world. You can let that image rest gently, a tiny geometry stretched across damp air, patient and fine. The rainforest does not divide beauty from function. A web is beautiful because it works, and it works because it belongs exactly where it is. Moss holds water because its structure invites water. Ferns gather light because their fronds open wide. The old trees stand because wood, root, soil, fungus, and weather have reached a long agreement. We move through these agreements slowly, with no need to disturb them. As the day lowers, even if we don't name the hour, the light in the Olympic temperate rainforest becomes more blue and more diffuse. Shadows thicken under logs. The spaces between trees seem to deepen. Drops on leaves turn from silver to grey. You may feel the cooling air near your wrists and the quiet pressure of evening settling into the understory. The forest doesn't end its work at dusk, it simply changes voices. At night, flying squirrels may move between trees, gliding from trunk to trunk on folds of skin stretched between their limbs. They feed on fungi, lichens, seeds, and other small forest foods, and they help spread fungal spores through the woods. Their movement is soft enough to belong to dreams. You can imagine one crossing a gap in darkness, not falling, not rushing, but floating briefly through wet cedar air. Bats may hunt along openings, streams, and forest edges where insects gather. Their calls are too high for us to hear clearly, but their bodies read the night in echoes. The rainforest at night is not empty, just because our eyes lose detail. It is textured with wing beats, scent trails, damp bark, and the faint rustle of animals moving under cover. We are held inside a larger listening. Owls take their place in this nocturnal layer. A barred owl or a northern pygmy owl may call from shadowed timber, depending on place and hour, each voice carrying differently through wet air. The sound is softened by moss and distance. It doesn't need to startle us. In a sleepwood forest, even an owl call can feel like a low mark on the edge of a dream. Small mammals become more active after dark. Deer mice, voles, shrews, and mountain beavers move through the understory and soil. The mountain beaver, despite its name, is not the familiar dam-building beaver, but a burrowing rodent of moist Pacific forests. It feeds on ferns, shrubs, and tender vegetation, making tunnels where the ground is damp enough to hold. Its world is close, green, and hidden. The Olympic temperate rainforest gives such animals cover in almost every direction. There are root hollows, log interiors, fern beds, moss mats, and spaces under bark. To be small here is not to be lost. It is to belong to a world full of roofs. You can feel how the forest lowers itself protectively over the ground, not with intention, but through structure, moisture, and age. And as night settles deeper into the trees, we can listen for the living rain of the canopy. Because even after the sky has stopped raining, the forest continues to drip. Water moves slowly from needles to twigs, from twigs to moss, from moss to bark, from bark to root. The sound is scattered and tender. It surrounds you without asking for attention, the way sleep surrounds the edge of thought. This lingering water supports the great green skin of the forest. Mosses and liverworts cover trunks, stones, logs, and soil, turning hard edges soft. They don't have roots like flowering plants, but they hold fast and drink from the air and surface moisture. Their small leaves form tiny overlapping worlds, full of pores, threads, and droplets. Under a hand, moss would feel cool, yielding, and alive. Liverworts may lie flat and delicate on logs or rocks, often overlooked because they are small and close to the surface. Yet they are among the old styles of land plant life, simple and beautifully suited to damp places. We don't need to make them grand. Their quietness is the point. They green the margins, hold moisture, and give shelter to creatures so small they live below ordinary noticing. Lichens add other colors to the Olympic temperate rainforest. Pale green, gray, yellow, and blue-green forms spread over bark and branch, some crusted tight, others leafy, others hanging in hair-like strands. A lichen is not one thing alone, but a partnership, usually fungus with algae or cyanobacteria. That partnership allows it to live on surfaces where soil is thin or absent. Cooperation becomes a visible texture. Air quality, moisture, and time all shape these lichen communities. Some grow so slowly that their presence suggests years of undisturbed conditions. When they hang from old branches in the fog, they give the forest a bearded, ancient appearance. You may feel as if the trees have been listening for centuries. They have no ears, of course, but the moss and lichen make them seem attentive. In winter, elk may browse some lichens from fallen branches, and small mammals may use them too. Birds gather moss and plant fibers for nests, weaving the damp materials into soft places for eggs. The line between plant, shelter, food, and atmosphere becomes very thin here. A mossy branch can be a sponge, a garden, a nursery, a roof, and a meal, depending on who has come to it. As we move onward, the ground becomes uneven with roots, and each root seems to hold the slope in a quiet grip. These roots do not work alone. They share soil with fungi, bacteria, invertebrates, and water moving through pore spaces. The smell rising from the ground is deep and cool, especially where the duff has been turned by hooves or rain. It is the smell of continuance. Soil in the Olympic temperate rainforest is not simply dirt beneath the living world. It is part of the living world. Needles and leaves fall into it. Fungi transform them. Invertebrates shred them, and microbes complete work too fine for the eye. The result is a layered, breathing medium that holds roots and moisture. You can picture the whole forest standing partly above ground and partly within this dark, living depth. Earthworms are present in some places, though many soils of the Pacific Northwest developed without the same abundance of earthworms found elsewhere. Other decomposers, including insects, mites, springtails, millipedes, fungi, and bacteria, do much of the work. The specific shift from place to place, because a rainforest valley is not uniform. Even a few steps can change moisture, shade, and what lives beneath your feet. Springtails are tiny, often pale or dark, and they move through damp litter, feeding on fungal material and decaying matter. Mites inhabit the same hidden architecture. Millipedes chew softened leaves, turning large fragments into smaller ones. These creatures rarely enter the main story when people speak of forests, but they keep the story going. Without them, the green world above would have trouble returning to itself. You can imagine lying safely in bed while hearing these words, and feeling the forest floor not as something remote, but as a slow cushion beneath the mind. Layer over layer, leaf over needle, moss over bark, rain over all of it. The Olympic temperate rainforest becomes a place where the idea of rest is not empty. It is full of unseen, gentle processes moving at their own pace. And as the unseen work continues below us, we drift toward a gap in the canopy, where a fallen giant has opened a soft window of light. These openings are important, because old forests are not closed forever. Wind, age, saturated soil, and natural breakage bring trees down, and each fall changes the light. What seems like loss from one angle becomes opportunity from another. In a canopy gap, salmonberry may grow thick and bright, with leaves catching more sun than plants in the deep shade. Huckleberry and thimbleberry may find room here too. Young conifers rise where seed has fallen onto nurse logs, mineral soil, or rotten wood. The air feels slightly warmer in these openings, and after rain, the scent of leaves can feel fresh and almost sweet. Light becomes food. Birds use these brighter patches in different ways. Hummingbirds may visit flowers along edges when the season offers nectar, their small bodies hovering in the damp air like living sparks. Warblers search new leaves for insects. Sparrows and wrens move between cover and opening. The gap is not separate from the forest. It is one of the forest's breaths, a place where the canopy exhales and begins again. Red huckleberries grow from rotten wood, often rooted in old stumps and logs where moisture stays available. Their berries feed birds, bears, rodents, and people too, though in our quiet journey we leave them for the forest. Salal offers dark berries and glossy leaves in thick evergreen patches. These shrubs turn sunlight into food that moves through feathers, fur, droppings, seeds, and soil. Sweetness becomes movement. Pollinators visit flowers in the brief, generous seasons when the rainforest opens its colors. Bees, flies, beetles, and moths all have roles, some obvious and some easily missed. A fly on a salmonberry blossom may be as important in its own small way as a bird in the canopy. The rainforest is not only wet and green, it is also timed by bloom, fruit, spore, hatch, and return. The gap will not remain a gap forever. Young trees will lean into the light, their needles gathering years. Shrubs may thicken, then thin again as shade returns. Moss will climb new bark. Fallen wood will settle lower. What feels like an opening is really a slow rotation of stages, and we are only passing through one moment of a pattern much longer than a human evening. Standing in that soft light, you can sense how the Olympic temperate rainforest lives through change without losing its calm. A storm may break a branch, a tree may fall, a river may shift, and still the forest responds by growing through the new shape. This isn't a story of disturbance as alarm. It is a story of response, patience, and renewal. And when the light fades again under the next stand of trees, we follow the cool shade toward places where water rises not as a river, but as seep, mist, and wet ground. The soil darkens under skunk cabbage leaves, and the air carries a richer, marshy scent. You may feel the path grow softer in the imagination. The rainforest is full of these damp pockets where water pauses before moving on. Wetlands within and beside the forest hold their own communities of life. Skunk cabbage grows large yellow blooms early in the year, warming slightly and drawing pollinators with scent. Sedges and rushes gather where standing water lingers. Amphibians breed in quiet pools, and insects lay eggs in still surfaces that reflect the gray sky. These places are small mirrors, held low among trees, full of beginnings. Pacific chorus frogs may call from wet areas, their voices carrying through rain-dark evenings. Tadpoles grow in shallow water, feeding and changing slowly until legs appear and tails shrink. Newts may use ponds and slow edges too, moving between water and land as seasons allow. You can picture the surface trembling under a light shower, each ring widening, crossing and fading over hidden life below. Wet ground also stores water and releases it slowly. This matters for streams, roots, and the long green season of the rainforest. Sponge-like soils, mosses and woody debris help moderate flow, holding some rain back from immediate runoff. The forest does not stop water. It slows it, spreads it, cools it, and lets it find many paths. The whole place is a lesson in gentleness. In these saturated places, the smell changes. There is less cedar spice and more dark leaf, more mineral, more standing water. Your imagined boots would press into softness, and the air would feel cool around your ankles. A dragonfly might move through a clearing when the season is warm enough, while gnats and midges gather in faint clouds. Life rises from the wet margins in delicate forms. Snags near wetlands may host cavity nesters, while shrubs provide cover for songbirds. Bats may feed above the open water in evening. Elk may browse around the edges, leaving deep prints that fill with rain. Each footprint can become a tiny pool, and each pool can hold reflections, silt, seeds, or insects. Even impressions left behind become temporary worlds. The Olympic temperate rainforest is often imagined as towering trees alone, but its wet openings, seep lines, and quiet boggy edges are just as alive. They add variety to the green, making room for species that need more light, more water, or softer ground. A forest this old and wet is not one habitat. It is a braid of habitats, woven so closely that we move through them without clear borders. And as we leave the wet hollow, the path lifts slightly, and the air begins to carry the resinous scent of conifers again. The ground becomes firmer under cedar roots. Sword ferns return in layered fans. You can hear a raven somewhere above, its call low and rounded, moving through the canopy like a dark stone dropped into water. The forest receives the sound and lets it fade. Ravens live well in these landscapes, intelligent and watchful, using forest edges, river corridors, and high perches. They feed on many things and pay attention to patterns around them. In the Olympic temperate rainforest, their presence can feel ancient, though each bird is simply living its own day. A raven crossing between trees carries a little piece of open sky through the shade. Stella's jays may appear too, blue and dark-crested, moving through camp edges and forest openings with sharp awareness. We don't need to follow their brighter energy for long. We let it pass, the way a blue feather might fall into moss and become quiet again. The rainforest can hold vivid color without losing its low tone. Even brightness is softened under the canopy. Varied thrushes bring one of the most fitting voices to these woods. Their song can sound like a single held note, eerie only if you resist the forest's slowness, beautiful when you let it hover. The note seems to come from everywhere and nowhere, shaped by trees and mist. You may hear it and feel the space between trunks become visible. Sound draws a map in air. Winter wrens, now often called Pacific wrens in this region, sing with astonishing complexity from low perches near roots and logs. Their bodies are tiny, their songs long and intricate, and the contrast feels tender. A small bird can fill a wet hollow with music, then vanish into a root tangle. You start to understand that size and presence are not the same thing in a forest. The Olympic temperate rainforest is full of such quiet corrections. The largest trees are not the only important lives. The smallest insects are not simple. The darkest places are not empty. The wettest ground is not merely muddy. Every assumption softens here, like bark under moss. We keep moving at the forest's pace, allowing each detail to arrive without needing to hold it tightly. As we pass beneath cedar boughs, we can pause with the tree itself, because western red cedar is both shelter and participant in this damp world. Its bark hangs in long fibrous strips, and its flattened sprays of scale-like leaves shed rain gently. Older cedars may have hollow places, buttressed bases, and great fluted trunks that seem to gather shadow. Their scent is faintly sweet, woody, and clean. Western hemlock is often abundant in the shade, with delicate drooping leaders and small cones. It can germinate on rotten wood, rising from nurse logs where moisture and nutrients gather. Sitka spruce, especially nearer coastal valleys, grows tall and strong in wet air, its needles sharper to the touch. Douglas fir may join the forest too, though in the wettest old-growth valleys, spruce, hemlock, maple, and cedar create much of the feeling. Each tree species handles water, shade, and soil in its own way. Some tolerate deep shade as seedlings. Some reach quickly toward gaps. Some live with roots spread wide in shallow, wet ground. Together, they make a structure that changes from valley floor to slope, from river terrace to upland bench. The forest is a conversation among needs, and rain is the language most often spoken. Bigleaf maple brings another kind of abundance. Its wide leaves catch light in the growing season and fall in broad, soft layers when autumn comes. Its branches often carry heavy moss gardens, creating elevated habitat for insects, licorice fern, and small organisms that thrive above ground. When you look at a moss-covered maple limb, it can feel like seeing a hillside lifted into the air. In autumn, the maples may turn yellow, and the forest light warms for a little while. Leaves fall onto moss, logs, water, and soil, adding a different texture to the evergreen world. The sound of a leaf landing in wet fern is barely a sound at all. Still, the forest receives it. The season folds itself downward, one leaf at a time, into the ground. And as seasons turn in this quiet way, the animals adjust their patterns without breaking the forest's calm. Elk move with forage and weather. Bears feed heavily before winter rest. Birds shift territories, migrate, or gather into mixed flocks. Amphibians retreat into damp cover when conditions call for it. The rainforest is not asleep in winter, but it lowers its energy into roots, streams, wood, and hidden bodies. Snow may touch higher elevations of the Olympic mountains while rain continues in the low valleys. Cold air drains along rivers, and mist catches among trunks in pale layers. The forest smells sharper then, more mineral, more bark than leaf. You can imagine placing a hand near a mossy log and feeling cold moisture rise from it. Everything seems slower, but the slowness is full of life. In winter rains, streams swell and rearrange their beds. Gravel shifts, logs move or settle, pools deepen, banks soften, and side channels wake again. Salmon eggs lie in redds beneath the gravel, where cold water flows through tiny spaces. The next generation begins in darkness and motion, held between stones. We stand far back from that hidden beginning, letting the river keep its privacy. Spring arrives gradually, not as a single moment. Buds open, skunk cabbage blooms, birds sing more often, and new leaves brighten the understory. The rain remains, but the green seems to lift closer to light. In the Olympic temperate rainforest, spring can feel less like a return and more like an intensifying of what was already present. The forest was never empty, it was only waiting. Summer is still moist, compared with many places, though dry spells may come and change the feel of the trails. Moss may crisp at the edges, and streams may run lower, revealing more stone. Animals follow shade and water. Berries ripen in openings. Insects become more active in the warmer air. Even then, the deep forest keeps cool pockets where the smell of wet wood remains. Autumn brings rain back with a fuller hand. Mushrooms appear after moisture returns, pushing through duff, wood, and moss with quiet insistence. Some are bright, some plain, some hidden beneath leaves. They are only the visible fruiting bodies of larger fungal networks, but they give the forest floor a sense of arrival. You can walk slowly in the mind and notice them like small lamps without flame. Fungi also feed animals directly. Deer, elk, squirrels, mice, and invertebrates may eat mushrooms or underground truffle-like fungi. Flying squirrels are especially important in some Pacific Northwest forests because they consume fungi and spread spores through their droppings. Those fungi may then form partnerships with tree roots. A small nocturnal mammal, gliding between trunks, can help sustain the forest's hidden root economy. This is one of the soft marvels of the Olympic temperate rainforest. What happens in the dark often supports what rises into view. Spores travel unseen. Roots exchange unseen. Soil organisms work unseen. Salmon eggs develop unseen. Owls pass unseen. The forest doesn't need constant visibility to be complete. In fact, much of its peace comes from allowing life to continue outside the reach of our attention. And as we follow that unseen life, we come again to the lower trunks, where roots arch over hollows and make small shelters beneath themselves. These spaces may hold cool air even on warmer days. Leaves collect there, along with cones, twigs, and the fine reddish dust of decaying cedar. A shrew may pass through, or a spider may wait, or nothing obvious may happen at all. Still, the hollow has purpose. Roots in wet forests often spread broadly because oxygen may be limited in saturated soils. They bind the upper layers, mingle with fungi, and gather nutrients from decomposing matter. When a large tree falls, the root plate may rise, exposing soil and stone in a sudden wall that slowly softens over time. Ferns colonize it. Moss covers it. Seeds find it. A wound becomes terrain. Tip-up mounds and root hollows create tiny variations in the forest floor. One side may be drier, another wetter. One surface may catch more light. Small plants sort themselves into these differences, and insects follow the plants and moisture. To us it may look like rough ground, but to the forest it is topography. Each lifted root and hollowed place adds another room to the house of green. You may notice how often the Olympic temperate rainforest turns edges into homes. The edge of bark and air, the edge of stream and bank, the edge of log and soil, the edge of canopy gap and shade. Life gathers where conditions meet, because meeting places offer variety. We move through those edges slowly, feeling how the forest is made of transitions rather than lines. Even the boundary between land and ocean is present here, though the sea may be miles away behind trees and ridges. Moist air arrives from the Pacific. Salmon return from it. Murrelets travel between it and the canopy. Storms bring its breath inland as rain. The rainforest is not coastal in every view, but it is oceanic in its moisture, its migrations, and its rhythm. The Olympic mountains shape that rhythm by lifting the air and drawing rain from it. Valleys on the western side receive the great wetness that makes these forests so lush. Rivers carry snowmelt and rainfall back toward the sea. The landscape is a loop of rising air, falling water, flowing streams, returning fish, and growing trees. We can rest inside that loop without needing to solve it. As the path bends, a patch of moss glows in filtered light with a green so deep it seems almost quiet enough to hear. The moss covers stone, but the stone remains beneath it, cool and steady. Geological time rests under biological time. The rainforest grows on land shaped by uplift, erosion, rivers, glacial history, and mountain weather. Life here is soft, but it stands on an ancient foundation. The stones in riverbeds are rounded by motion, carried from higher slopes and turned by current over seasons and centuries. Gravel beds become nurseries for salmon. Boulders make pools and eddies. Fine sediment settles in slower places, feeding floodplain soils. The geology does not stand apart from the ecosystem. It gives the river its texture, and the river gives life its pathways. You can imagine placing a smooth river stone in your hand. It would be cold, slick, and heavier than it looks. Around it, water would slip and whisper. Beneath it, insect larvae might shelter. Beside it, salmon eggs might rest in the gravel. Above it, cedar roots might hold the bank. One stone becomes part of many lives, because the rainforest wastes no surface. Floods, too, belong to the system when they come in their natural patterns. They move wood, refresh channels, build gravel bars, and connect rivers with floodplains. We don't frame them as violence here. We let them be powerful and slow in the larger sense. Part of how rivers maintain complexity. After high water falls, new deposits remain, and seedlings may root where silt has settled. Change leaves room. On river terraces, red alder may grow in younger stands, especially where disturbance has opened ground. Alders can enrich soil through partnerships with nitrogen-fixing bacteria in root nodules. Their leaves fall and decompose, adding nutrients that support later forest development. They are often early companions in renewal, bringing a lighter shade and a different texture to places where the forest is rebuilding. Alders also feed insects, and insects feed birds. Their catkins, leaves, bark, and fallen litter all enter the web. Siskins and other small birds may use alder seeds. Deer may browse young shoots. The tree's life is not as towering in the imagination as spruce or cedar, but it has its own quiet importance. The Olympic temperate rainforest is made of many kinds of usefulness, not just majesty. And as the terrace rises back into older conifers, the light narrows again, and the sound of the river becomes a softened thread behind us. You can feel the air stilling under the canopy. The smell returns to cedar, hemlock, wet needles, and fungal earth. Our pace remains slow enough for details to appear on their own. A cone on moss, a feather caught in fern, a droplet trembling at the end of a root. Douglas squirrels may chatter from branches or move along logs, feeding on conifer seeds and storing food. Their middens, made of cone scales and stored materials, can accumulate at favored spots over time. They are small, active presences, but the forest absorbs their liveliness. Even quick paws on bark become part of the larger quiet. You may hear them and smile inwardly, then let the sound fade. Chipmunks may appear near edges or drier openings, though much of the deep rainforest belongs more strongly to moisture-loving communities. Voles and mice work under cover, feeding on seeds, fungi, and green matter. Their tunnels through litter and grass are tiny roots through a vast world. From their scale, a sword fern is a tree, a log is a ridge, and a root hollow is a valley. Scale changes everything in the Olympic temperate rainforest. To us, a nurse log is a fallen tree. To a seedling, it is ground. To a beetle, it is food and shelter. To a salamander, it is a damp ceiling. To fungi, it is a long feast of chemistry and time. You can let your mind become smaller for a while, resting inside the many dimensions of the same place. On damp mornings, the forest may seem to breathe mist from the ground. Vapor hangs low, weaving through trunks and vanishing as the air warms slightly. Spiderwebs appear briefly, outlined with droplets, then disappear when the beads fall or dry. The scene changes without drama. It is enough to watch one surface become visible, then hidden again, while the rainforest keeps its calm. Moths rest on bark with wings folded, patterned to resemble lichen, leaf, or shadow. Some fly at night, and pollinate flowers or become food for bats and birds. Their caterpillars feed on leaves, growing quietly through stages most people never notice. Insects often live in brief, delicate cycles within the longer lives of trees. The forest holds both kinds of time at once. Time is one of the true inhabitants here. It lives in rings of wood, layers of soil, salmon returns, fungal networks, and the slow bending of branches under moss. It lives in animal paths that deepen by use, and in stones rounded by water. We are not outside it as we listen. We are being carried too, gently and without urgency, through the same darkening current. And as we continue, the forest becomes less like a place we are observing and more like a pace we are borrowing. Your breath may slow, your shoulders may soften, the imagined damp air touches the edges of your face, and the bed beneath you can feel a little like moss, holding you without needing anything from you. The Olympic temperate rainforest is generous in this way, even from far away. There is a quiet comfort in knowing that many lives here do not need to be seen to be real. The salamander under bark, the vole beneath leaves, the owl on a shaded limb, the fungus inside a root, all continue whether or not we notice. This can be restful. It means the world is not held together by our attention. It is already held by rain, root, hunger, shelter, and season. Near a fallen maple, licorice fern grows from moss along the branches, its fronds arching outward as if the tree was still leafing in another form. The fern's rhizomes carry a sweet taste, though we leave them untouched in our passage. Its presence high on a branch tells you how much moisture the air can hold. Soil is not always below. In this forest, soil can gather in the sky. Small invertebrates live in those suspended moss mats, making canopy soil a true habitat. Seeds may lodge there, water may pool there, fungi may thread through it. The branch becomes a ridge, the moss becomes meadow, and the air around it becomes climate. We look upward and understand that the rainforest is not only tall, it is layered with living surfaces from root to crown. Birds moving through the canopy are not simply crossing empty space. They are traveling through a vertical landscape of needles, moss, cones, cavities, and insects. A kinglet may glean tiny prey from conifer twigs. A warbler may search leaves in season. A murrelet, in the right old forest near the coast, may find a mossy platform for nesting. The heights are full of choices. The sound of wind when it comes is different in such a canopy. It doesn't rush cleanly through. It is strained through needles, split by trunks, softened by moss, and lowered into a broad, breathing sound. The trees may sway, but the forest floor remains dim and protected. You can imagine looking up and seeing only small movements far above, while down here the ferns barely stir. Storms sometimes bring trees down, especially when soils are saturated and roots hold shallow in wet ground. Yet even a fallen tree continues the forest rather than leaving it. Its crown opens light, its trunk stores water, its roots expose mineral soil, and its decaying body feeds generations. We return to this because the rainforest returns to it endlessly. Falling is not only an ending, it is also arrival. And as the idea of falling softens into the idea of returning, we walk deeper toward a place where old trunks stand close together and the daylight becomes a dim green wash. This is the kind of stand where your voice, if you spoke, would naturally lower. The air is heavy with moisture, but not oppressive. It is like being wrapped in a cool cloth, scented with cedar and earth. Here, the Olympic temperate rainforest feels especially ancient, though every leaf before us is part of the present. Old growth is not just old trees. It is structure, variety, standing deadwood, fallen wood, layered canopy, uneven ages, and long continuity of habitat. It is a forest with many places to live. Complexity here doesn't feel busy, it feels restful, because each part has found its place. A small stream threads through the stand, almost hidden by moss and oxalis. Redwood sorrel, where it grows, folds its leaves in shade and moisture, carpeting the ground with delicate green hearts. Foam flower, false lily of the valley, and other forest herbs may appear in season. close to the soil and tuned to filtered light. Their flowers are modest, often pale, and easy to miss unless you slow down. Slowing down is the way to see what lives here. You start with the obvious trunks, then the ferns, then the moss, then the insects, then the marks of animals, then the water in everything. The forest becomes more populated as your pace decreases. This is true of many quiet ecosystems, but the rainforest teaches it with unusual tenderness. Attention sinks, and life rises to meet it. There may be a faint smell of mushrooms from the base of a log. There may be a cool draft from the stream channel. There may be a single feather lying dark against pale moss. None of these details ask to be explained immediately. They can simply be present, the way thoughts can be present before sleep without needing to become plans. The forest lets perception become soft. If we think again of what lives in the Olympic temperate rainforest, we begin to understand that the answer is not a list, but a layering. Trees live here, and moss on trees, and insects in moss, and birds in branches, and fungi in roots, and salmon in streams, and bears moving between berry and river. The question opens outward, until it includes water, stone, fog, and the long patience of shade. Even sunlight lives differently here. It arrives filtered, broken, and dampened by cloud and leaf. It touches a fern tip, slips from a droplet, warms a patch of bark, and disappears behind moving mist. Plants take what they can from it, and animals follow the plants in their own ways. Nothing is wasted, not even a brief brightness on a wet leaf. And as the light continues to thin, we follow the forest's evening down toward the floor again, where the colors deepen and the sounds grow closer. A wren's song has ended now in the imagination. The stream remains. Drops still fall. Somewhere, a small mammal stirs beneath leaves. The air cools by another degree, and the scent of wet cedar seems to settle nearer the ground. Evening is when edges become important again. Openings meet shadow, trails meet thicket, river bars meet trees, and day-active creatures make room for night-active ones. Bats may take insects over water. Owls may begin to listen from perches. Amphibians may move if the air is wet enough. The change is gradual, like ink spreading through clear water. We are not watching a curtain fall, but a forest turning. The Olympic temperate rainforest holds darkness gently because so much of it is already accustomed to low light. Many plants here can live with shade. Many animals rely on scent, hearing, touch, or memory as much as sight. The forest does not become strange when night arrives. It becomes more itself, more enclosed, more fragrant, more dependent on small sounds and known paths. A black bear may be bedding somewhere unseen, or moving along a slope with its nose close to the ground. Elk may stand in a meadow, dark shapes in gray air. A salamander may cross a wet patch of leaf litter, leaving no mark you would notice. A spider may repair a web between fern stems. Life continues in the hush. We can let the hush deepen without turning it empty. This is one of the calmest truths of a rainforest. Silence here is always layered. It contains water moving underground, fungi working through wood, roots drawing moisture, insects chewing, feathers settling, and animals breathing out of sight. The quieter we become, the more the forest seems to contain, until quietness itself feels inhabited. The ground in evening releases a cooler smell. It is leaf mold, mineral water, mushroom, and bark, all softened together. You can imagine the dampness at the edge of your sleeves, the chill against your face, the slow comfort of being surrounded by green walls and a clouded roof. The forest gives no command. It offers only enclosure, texture, and time. And as we remain with that enclosure, the trail seems less important than the sense of being held within a living valley. The Olympic temperate rainforest extends beyond what we can see, through river corridors, over slopes, into fog, and toward the mountains that gather rain. Each hidden acre holds its own balance of trees, animals, streams, and decay. We are touching only one thread of a very large weaving. Somewhere higher, snowfields and alpine meadows feed water downward into these valleys. Somewhere lower, rivers widen toward the sea. Between them, the rainforest receives, slows, and transforms what passes through. This middle world of green shade is not separate from summit or shore. It is a breathing passage between them, full of lives adapted to moisture and patience. The thought can be comforting as you drift. You don't have to hold the whole landscape at once. You can rest with one cedar root, one fern, one drop of water on moss. The forest itself holds the larger pattern. It has been holding patterns far longer than we have been naming them, and it will keep doing so after our attention has softened into sleep. A final note of thrush song may linger in the mind, though the bird itself is hidden. The note seems to hang between trunks and then dissolve into dripping leaves. You can let it dissolve. You can let the shapes of elk, salmon, moss, cedar, owl, slug, and salamander loosen from their names and become only movement, color, moisture, and rest. Still, the lives remain. The banana slug continues over the leaf. The salmon rests in a pool. The elk shifts its weight in wet grass. The owl turns its head in the high dimness. The fungus threads through the root. The moss holds another bead of water, and we keep moving with the forest's slow breath deeper into the rain-dark green, where every hidden life has room to continue beneath the dripping trees. Beneath those dripping trees, the air feels almost close enough to touch, as though the forest has gathered its moisture into a soft, invisible cloth. You can imagine it resting against your face, cool and clean, carrying the green scent of fern and the deeper scent of old wood. We move without disturbing the leaves, following the sense of water as it settles into root hollows and dark soil. In the Olympic temperate rainforest, even the air seems to have weight. That weight is gentle, and it changes how sound travels through the understory. A falling drop is heard clearly for a moment, then it is absorbed by moss. A branch creaks high above, and the sound descends slowly, softened by needles and lichen. You may hear the thin ticking of water from a cedar limb, the faint stir of a small animal under salal, and the river far away, steady as breath behind sleep. As we remain near the forest floor, the shapes around us become simpler. Ferns overlap until they look like one broad green surface. Roots disappear under moss. Fallen leaves darken at the edges and join the soil by degrees. Nothing asks to be separated too sharply. The rainforest teaches a kind of blurred attention, where one life passes into another, and every boundary becomes kind. The banana slug, still moving somewhere near the wet leaves, belongs perfectly to this softened world. Its body is mostly water, and the forest protects that water with shade, rain, and shelter. It feeds on fungi, leaves, and decaying material, helping return what has fallen to the living ground. You can picture its slow path, not as laziness, but as precision. It moves at the speed its body and home have agreed upon. Slugs and snails also become food for birds, beetles, small mammals, and other forest lives. Their eggs rest in damp places, small and pale, hidden in soil or under debris. Their trails shimmer briefly and then vanish, like quiet handwriting erased by the next rain. In the Olympic temperate rainforest, a silver line on a leaf may be the only evidence of a whole night's journey. The forest floor is full of such messages. A scraped patch of duff may show where a bird searched for insects. A small tunnel through moss may mark the path of a vole. A broken mushroom may have fed a squirrel or beetle. You and I move through these signs slowly, not trying to solve them all, but letting them deepen the feeling that the green around us is awake in many ways. There are moments when the rainforest seems still, but stillness here is layered with metabolism. Roots draw water, fungal threads release enzymes, bacteria divide, and small jaws work in the dark. A leaf lying flat on soil becomes softer each day, then less leaf, then food, then part of something new. The process is not loud. It is almost tender in its persistence, a long returning into earth. If you were close to the ground, you might smell the difference between fresh rain and older decay. Fresh rain smells clean and mineral, lifted from bark and stone. Old decay smells sweet, fungal, and deep, as if the forest has been steeping itself for centuries. Both scents belong together. The first falls from above, the second rises from below. Between them, the living forest breathes. And as that breath moves around us, we drift toward the base of a great western red cedar, where the trunk widens into fluted folds. The bark is fibrous, reddish beneath the gray damp, and moss has gathered in the sheltered grooves. You can imagine resting your attention against it, the way one might rest against a warm memory. The cedar is not warm exactly, but its presence has a steady calm. Old cedars often carry evidence of long weather. Their tops may be broken, their centers hollowing, their branches irregular after storms and years. Yet those irregularities make habitat. A hollow can shelter animals. A broken top can hold moisture. A rough limb can host moss and fern. The tree's imperfections are not failures in the rainforest. They are invitations to other lives. Cavities in old trees may shelter bats, birds, squirrels, or insects, depending on size, height, and condition. Some cavities begin with decay, some with broken branches, some with woodpeckers making careful openings. Once made, they can be used again and again. A single hollow place may hold nesting, roosting, resting, and hiding across many seasons. Shelter is one of the forest's slow gifts. Around the cedar's base, the ground is dark and protected. Needles collect there. Small roots cross the surface like cords. A salamander might shelter beneath loosened bark. A spider might wait near a gap. A seed might rest until light, moisture, and luck align. You can feel how many futures lie quietly under a single tree, folded into dampness and shade. The Olympic temperate rainforest is often generous because it is uneven. Smooth, tidy places offer fewer niches. Here, there are cracks, hollows, snags, mounds, banks, root plates, seep lines, and branches heavy with moss. Each difference gives some creature a chance. The beauty is not neatness, it is complexity softened by rain, so the whole place feels peaceful instead of crowded. As we move away from the cedar, the trail passes through sword ferns taller than your knees, each frond holding droplets along its ribs. Sword fern is one of the familiar presences of this forest, evergreen and steady, able to live in shade beneath the tall conifers. Its fronds arch outward in layered fans, making cover for small animals and shelter for damp soil. It gives the understory a feathered depth. When rain falls through sword fern, it breaks into tiny sounds. Drops strike the upper leaves, slip along the fronds, and fall again into moss below. The plant is both receiver and instrument. You can listen to it without needing to name it, though naming it gently helps us notice how much of the forest's texture comes from repeated forms. Fern over fern, leaf over leaf, green over green. Deer fern may grow in moist shade too, with sterile fronds low and spreading, and fertile fronds rising more upright in season. Lady fern may appear in wetter places, delicate and bright. Each fern handles moisture and light a little differently, and together they make the forest floor feel ancient, though each frond is new growth. Their lineage reaches back into deep plant history, but their presence here is immediate and cool. Ferns reproduce by spores, not seeds, and on the underside of fronds you may find rows or clusters where spores develop. The process is quiet and easily missed. Spores drift, settle, and begin another kind of life stage before a new fern appears. In a rainforest, where surfaces stay damp, such ancient strategies still feel perfectly at home. The air itself helps carry continuance. Between the ferns, salal forms dark glossy thickets. Its leaves are tough, oval, and evergreen, shining after rain. Its berries feed many animals, and its dense cover gives shelter to birds and small mammals. Salal can make passage difficult for human legs, but for smaller bodies it creates rooms, tunnels, and hidden feeding places. The understory is not an obstacle to them, it is architecture. Salmonberry grows differently, with arching canes and soft leaves, often near openings and wet edges. Its flowers arrive early, offering nectar when the year is still cool. Rufous hummingbirds, when present in season, may visit those blossoms after long movement northward. You can imagine a tiny body hovering before a pink flower, wings a blur, while the rest of the rainforest remains dim and dripping. Brief motion rests inside wider stillness. The berries that follow become part of the seasonal table. Birds eat them, bears eat them, small mammals eat them. Seeds pass through bodies and return to soil in new places. This is one of the forest's calmest forms of travel. A plant rooted in one place sends its future outward through appetite, and appetite becomes a gardener without a plan. As we follow that thought, the path seems to widen toward a gravel bar where the river has curved close again. The sound grows clearer, though still soft. Rounded stones shine through shallow water, and the banks are braided with roots. In the Olympic temperate rainforest, rivers do not merely cut through the forest. They converse with it, taking wood, giving silt, cooling air, and carrying life. The river's surface changes with every small shift in depth. In one place it wrinkles over gravel. In another, it smooths into a dark pool under leaning branches. Along the edges, foam collects briefly against sticks and then releases. You can picture leaves drifting in slow circles before the current takes them downstream. The motion is continuous, but never frantic. It is the kind of movement that can carry the mind towards sleep. Salmon fry and juveniles use these varied waters according to their needs. Some stay near banks and woody cover, avoiding the strongest flow. Some occupy side channels where the current is gentle. Large wood in the river creates complexity, making shelter, pools, and feeding zones. The fallen tree is not debris in the simple sense. It is river structure, fish shelter, insect habitat, and nutrient store. American dippers may nest near streams, often behind waterfalls, under banks, or on ledges where spray keeps the world damp. Their bodies are compact, their movements sure, and their eyelids can show pale when they blink. They feed beneath the water, doing something that feels almost impossible until you remember that every creature is shaped by its own home. The dipper belongs to current, the way moss belongs to rain. Otters may use wider river stretches, moving between water and land with fluid ease. You might find scat on a prominent rock, a signpost along a watery route. Their diet can include fish, amphibians, and invertebrates, depending on place and season. We allow them to remain at a distance in our imagination, sleek and quiet, slipping through dark pools where the forest leans close. Along the muddy edges, you may see the delicate prints of birds or the broad impressions of elk. Rain softens them, fills them, and smooths them away. The riverbank is a page that never keeps its writing for long. This impermanence feels restful. Not everything needs to be preserved. Some signs are meant only for a morning, a tide of weather, a passing attention. The river also cools the air around it. In summer, cold water from mountain rain and snowmelt can make a green corridor of relief. In winter, the same water carries the heaviness of rain toward the sea. Mist may lift from the surface in the right conditions, making trunks appear and disappear by degrees. You can breathe with that mist, letting the edges of things grow soft. And as we leave the gravel bar, we follow a side channel where the water moves more slowly under leaning shrubs. This quieter water can hold young fish, amphibian eggs, insects, and fallen leaves. The surface reflects branches in broken patterns. A leaf touches down, floats, turns, and rests against a twig. The whole place seems built for pauses, and the Olympic temperate rainforest is full of such pauses. Side channels and floodplain wetlands are important because they give life refuge from stronger currents. During high water, they spread flow across the valley floor. During lower water, they may remain as cool shaded pools or damp swales. Plants adapted to wet feet grow along them. Insects hatch. Birds feed. Amphibians use the shelter. A river is more than its main channel. It is a shifting neighborhood. Red alder may lean over these channels, its roots gripping soft banks. The leaves add nutrients when they fall, and the shade helps keep the water cool. In places where alder grows thickly, the light beneath it feels different from conifer shade, brighter and more silver. You can notice the change without leaving the calm, the way a sleeping mind notices a window growing pale before waking. A kingfisher might rattle along a river corridor, though we let the sound pass without sharpness. It hunts by watching water from perches, diving when a small fish comes within reach. Its blue-gray shape belongs to the line between air and stream. Even where there is quick movement, the larger rhythm remains slow. The bird feeds, the river flows, and the forest closes again behind the sound. Insects gather over slow water when the season is right. Midges rise in faint columns. Mayflies lift from the surface in brief, fragile adulthood. Caddisflies flutter near banks after lives spent underwater in cases of sand, twig, or leaf. Their transformations feed fish, birds, bats, and spiders. A small emergence can ripple through the forest's evening table. As the air darkens, bats may come to hunt above channels and clearings. They read the space with sound, sending calls and receiving echoes from wings, leaves, trunks, and water. Their flight is not random, though it may look so to us. It is precise within a world of reflections. You can imagine them crossing the dim river air like thoughts passing just before sleep. We turn back beneath the trees and the wet ground grows darker again. The river remains near, but the trunks interrupt its shine. Moss covers stones so completely that they seem less like stone and more like sleeping forms under green blankets. The path bends around a root wad from an old fallen tree, now softened by plants. Where a tree once tore up earth, a garden has gathered. This is how the Olympic temperate rainforest makes room from upheaval. Root wads expose mineral soil for seedlings. Depressions fill with water and leaves. Elevated mounds drain differently from surrounding ground. One fallen tree creates shade, light, wetness, dryness, shelter, and opening all at once. The event may have been brief, but the response lasts for many years. The forest stretches a moment into habitat. You can picture a western hemlock seed germinating on the top of a rotting log. It begins as something small enough to miss, a tiny green thread lifting from brown softness. Over years it grows taller, while the log beneath it decays. Its roots reach down and around, eventually standing like narrow stilts after the nurse log has mostly vanished. The old body leaves an empty shape inside the new one. These stilted roots tell a story without words. They show where the seed began. They show how support can disappear after it has done its work. They show how the forest keeps the form of what came before, even when the substance has changed. You and I can let that thought rest gently. It is not a lesson pressed upon us, only a quiet resemblance between forest and memory. In damp hollows nearby, mushrooms may rise after rain in small clusters. Some are pale and translucent at the edges. Some have caps the color of wet chestnut. Some grow from buried wood, their stems emerging through moss as if from nowhere. The names matter to science, but in this drifting hour, the feeling matters too. They are signs of hidden abundance reaching briefly into view. Fungal threads are everywhere, binding soil particles, entering roots, and breaking down fallen matter. Mycorrhizal fungi trade nutrients and water with trees in exchange for sugars made by leaves and needles. This exchange is not sentimental, it is biological, practical, and ancient, yet it can still feel beautiful. The forest survives through relationship, and relationship here is often quiet, chemical, and invisible. The same dampness that favors fungi also favors disease and rot. But the rainforest does not treat rot as an enemy in the simple sense. Rot opens wood. It makes cavities. It releases nutrients. It softens fallen trunks into beds for seedlings. It feeds insects that feed birds. Decay can be uncomfortable in other settings, but here it has a calm dignity. It is one of the forest's deepest forms of care. As we continue, you may notice how the colors remain muted, even when they are rich. Greens deepen into blue-green and black-green. Brown bark becomes red where it is freshly exposed. Gray lichen brightens after rain. White fungal threads appear under lifted bark. The palette is not loud, but it is endless. It asks the eye to settle down, then offers more than it first revealed. A Pacific banana slug on a dark log can be vivid as a small piece of sunlight, but even that brightness moves slowly. A red elderberry cluster in season can glow at the edge of shade. A salmon's body in a stream can flash silver, then vanish into brown water. The Olympic temperate rainforest allows color to appear as an accent within shadow, and that restraint makes each color feel held. Bird feathers do this too. The orange of a varied thrush, the blue of a Stella's jay, the red crest of a pileated woodpecker, all arrive against a background of cedar and moss. They are not decorations. They are living signals, shaped by evolution, light, and behavior. To a listener nearing sleep, they can become soft images, appearing and fading without demand. And as those images fade, we follow the forest into a deeper fold of the valley, where the ground is cool and the canopy nearly continuous. The air here has the hush of a room with thick walls. Footsteps in the imagination are muffled by duff. The river's voice is now distant again. Drips fall slowly from high branches, each one making a small dark mark that disappears into moss. In such shade, western hemlock seedlings may wait for years, growing slowly until a gap opens above them. Shade tolerance is one reason hemlock fits so well into these forests. It can survive with little light, holding its place until conditions change. This patience is not passive. It is a strategy, a way of remaining alive within limits until the forest offers a new opening. Western red cedar seedlings may also establish in moist, shaded places, especially on decaying wood. Sitka spruce seedlings often need light and suitable substrates, and their success changes with disturbance, browsing, and moisture. Each species has preferences, but the forest is a constantly shifting set of chances. Seeds fall widely. Only some find the exact combination of light, surface, moisture, and safety that lets them continue. Browsing by elk and deer influences which young plants survive. A seedling eaten too often may fail, while another, tucked on a high nurse log, may escape. Shrubs may be shaped by repeated feeding, and open areas may remain different because animals return. This is not conflict in a dramatic sense. It is interaction. The forest is formed by appetite as well as rain, by teeth as well as roots. In the Olympic temperate rainforest, even large herbivores are part of the vegetation's pattern. Elk can create wallows, trails, and grazed meadows. Their bodies move seeds, nutrients, and disturbance through the valley. Their resting places press grasses flat, and their droppings feed insects and soil. The animal is not just in the landscape, it helps compose the landscape, one season at a time. Insects visit elk droppings, fungi may grow there, and nutrients return to plants. This small cycle sits within larger cycles of salmon, leaves, wood, and rain. The forest does not divide the elegant from the ordinary. Everything useful is included. That can be comforting too. Nothing needs to be polished to belong. The rainforest receives what comes and changes it into continuation. As evening deepens in our passage, the trunks become more like silhouettes, though moss still catches what little light remains. You can feel the temperature lowering, a coolness at the edge of the hands and face. Damp air settles into clothing in the imagination. The scent of the forest becomes stronger as sight recedes. Cedar, leaf mold, stream water, fungus, and wet stone come forward. This shift from sight to scent and sound is part of what many animals already know. A shrew hunts by smell and touch through leaf litter. A bat maps open air by echo. An owl hears faint movement below. A salamander senses moisture and chemical traces. Human eyes may be poor in this dimness, but the forest is read in many languages. Darkness is not absence. It is a change of sense. You may hear a low rustle near a log and never know its source. That is all right. Not every sound needs a body attached to it in the mind. The uncertainty can remain soft. A mouse, a beetle, a falling leaf, a fern releasing water. Each possibility belongs here. The rainforest lets mystery stay small and gentle, not threatening, just unclaimed. Somewhere beneath bark, beetle larvae continue to feed. Somewhere in a root hollow, a spider waits without impatience. Somewhere above, a bird tucks its head beneath a wing. Somewhere in gravel, salmon eggs rest in flowing darkness. These are not scenes of suspense. They are scenes of continuation, repeating across the valley with quiet variations through the night. And as we drift through these continuations, we come to the feeling of the forest as a sheltering depth, though no ocean lies over us. The canopy is a surface above, the understory a middle water. the floor a soft bottom of leaves and wood. You sink through layers of green rather than blue. The Olympic temperate rainforest becomes its own kind of deep, measured in shade, moisture, and time. At the upper layer, needles catch fog and rain. In the middle layer, birds move through branches and mossy limbs. Lower down, shrubs hold berries, insects, nests, and cover. At the floor, fungi, amphibians, slugs, roots, and soil organisms work in the dimmest light. Each layer has its own pace. Each one touches the others through falling water and falling matter. The comparison to depth can help the body rest. You are not climbing or striving here. You are settling down through layers. First, the high trees, then the mossy branches, then the ferns, then the logs, then the soil. Your breath follows that gentle descent. With each imagined level, the world becomes cooler, darker and quieter, until even thought feels cushioned by leaf litter. In the soil, roots and fungi create a living net. Fine roots search small spaces for water and nutrients. Fungal hyphae extend that search into even finer spaces, trading with plants and decomposing organic matter. Bacteria transform nitrogen and carbon compounds in ways too small to see, but essential to growth. The rainforest's grandeur depends on work that happens at a scale beneath touch. Water moves through this net as rain filters downward. Some is taken up by roots. Some flows laterally through soil. Some enters streams. Some returns to the air through leaves. The cycle is not a circle drawn neatly on a page. It is a million tiny passages through moss, bark, root, stone, vapor, stream, cloud, and rain, all happening at once in different speeds. When fog enters the forest, it can condense on needles, leaves, and moss, adding moisture even when rain is not falling. This cloud drip helps sustain the damp character of the canopy and ground. The trees are not only recipients of weather, they help shape local wetness by catching and redistributing it. Standing under them, you are beneath living weather instruments, green and breathing. The Olympic temperate rainforest depends on this generosity of moisture, but it is not unlimited. Dry years, warming conditions, and changes in snowpack can influence streams, trees, and animals. We hold that knowledge lightly here, without turning the night sharp. To know a place gently is also to understand its sensitivities. Care begins with attention, and attention can be calm. Still, in this hour, rain is present everywhere. It darkens the bark, it beads on moss, it gathers in elk tracks, it moves under gravel. It rests in cloud against the mountains. It has entered leaves, fungi, salmon, salamanders, and the air you imagine breathing. The forest is water given 1,000 green forms, and each form returns it eventually to the flow. As we move again, a low branch brushes the space above the path, heavy with moss like a sleeve of green wool. Drops hang from its underside. One falls, then another, each leaving the branch a little lighter. You can imagine the sound close to your ear, soft and rounded. The branch lifts almost imperceptibly, as water leaves it. But the forest remains still. Moss can hold many times its dry weight in water, and that capacity shapes the feeling of this place. It buffers dryness, shelters tiny organisms, and slows the passage of rain. On branches, it creates pockets of suspended moisture. On logs, it keeps wood damp enough for decay and germination. On stones, it softens edges that would otherwise be bare. Moss is one of the rainforest's quiet hands. Under magnification, moss would reveal leaflets, stems, capsules, and tiny landscapes of droplets. Small invertebrates move among them. Spores form and release. Water clings between surfaces through forces too fine to see. But from where we drift, moss is simply the green softness that makes the forest feel kind. Both views are true. Science and softness can rest together. The forest's kindness is not intention but fit. The slug fits the damp leaf. The dipper fits the cold stream. The elk fits the river meadow. The lichen fits the fog-washed branch. The hemlock seedling fits the shaded nurse log. Each life has found, through long change, a way to meet this place. To notice that fit is to feel a quiet wonder. And now the path narrows again, passing beside a wall of roots where an old tree fell long ago. The exposed soil has darkened with age, and moss has climbed over its face. Ferns grow from pockets in the vertical earth. A small tunnel opens near the base, just wide enough for a mouse or vole. The forest uses every angle. Even a wall becomes ground. Root plates like this may reveal stones, clay, sand, and layers of older soil. Over time, rain softens them, plants colonize them, and animals use their cavities. The sharpness of the fall disappears. What remains is texture. You can see how the Olympic temperate rainforest rounds its own history, covering exposed places without erasing them completely. The past stays present, but gently. Above the root wall, a young tree leans toward filtered light. Its needles are fresh and tender. It may or may not survive, depending on shade, browsing, drought, fungi, and chance. Forest life is abundant, but not every beginning continues. We can acknowledge this without making it harsh. The peace of the forest includes selection, loss, and renewal, all moving within a larger patience. A small bird may perch on the young tree for a moment, bending it slightly, then move on. The branch springs back. A drop falls from its tip. Nothing important seems to have happened, and yet the moment was part of the forest's life. Weight, water, motion, recovery. The simplest gestures repeat everywhere when you begin to notice them. As sleep approaches, noticing can become less exact and more sensory. You may no longer need to hold each species' name. The words western hemlock, red cedar, Roosevelt elk, salmon, wren, dipper, slug, and salamander may loosen into impressions. Tall shade, wet bark, heavy breath in meadow grass, silver movement in brown water, a small song low in roots, a slow golden body crossing a leaf. This loosening is natural. The forest itself does not speak in names. Names are our way of approaching its complexity with respect, but the animals and plants live by light, moisture, hunger, season, and shelter. They don't need us to remember them perfectly. They continue in the rain-dark valley, each in its own manner, while we drift near the edge of sleep. And as we drift, the Olympic temperate rainforest deepens around us, not by becoming darker suddenly, but by letting every green layer settle lower in the mind. The canopy becomes a distant roof, the understory becomes a soft surrounding, the river becomes a low thread of sound. The forest floor becomes a place where all falling things are received. Somewhere, an elk calf dreams near the warmth of the herd, though we do not need to see it closely. Somewhere, a bear rests in cover, fed by berries and season. Somewhere, a dipper clings to its streamside roost, feathers settled. Somewhere, a slug pauses under a leaf with rain above it. Each life rests or moves according to its own need. The valley holds them without hurry. The old trees remain standing through the night, drawing no attention to their height. Their roots continue in darkness. Their branches hold moss and sleeping birds. Their bark shelters insects. Their fallen needles lie among last year's needles and the years before. The forest's vertical life is mirrored by its deep accumulation below, and between them, the air stays cool and wet. If wind comes, it arrives first as a higher sound. Needles stir, moss shifts, drops fall in greater numbers, a branch lowers and rises. Then the motion passes, and the dripping returns to its scattered pattern. The rainforest is sensitive to every movement of air, yet it never seems restless for long. It settles again quickly, like breath returning after a sigh. Rain may begin again in the night, so lightly at first that it is hard to separate from the drip already present. Then the canopy receives it, divides it, and lowers it to the ground in thousands of softer sounds. On the river, small rings appear and vanish. On leaves, beads gather and slide. On logs, water darkens the wood grain. The whole forest becomes more itself under rain. This new rain will enter the living systems we have been passing through. Some will be held in moss, some will sink into soil, some will be held in moss, some will sink into soil, fastened around in the gravel, some will run down cedar bark in narrow streams, Some will be lifted again later by roots and leaves. Nothing moves in only one direction for long. You can feel that in your own breathing now. The inward and outward, the receiving and releasing. The forest does this everywhere. Leaves receive light and releases nutrients. Rivers receive rain and release it inland. Moss receives droplets and releases them slowly. The pattern is simple and endless, and as the rain continues, we move beneath a low maple limb where moss hangs in long damp folds. The limb is broad enough to hold a small garden, and its surface is thick with green growth. Licorice fern grows there, its fronds bending under droplets. A beetle may shelter in the moss. A spider may anchor a web from fern to lichen. A branch becomes a shore. Canopy soils can accumulate from trapped leaves, dust, decayed moss, and other organic matter. In wet forests, these mats may become substantial enough to support plant growth above the ground. They hold water and nutrients in the air, creating habitat that never touches the forest floor. It is a remarkable thing to imagine before sleep, an elevated wetland resting on a living branch. Birds may forage there, searching through moss for insects. Squirrels may move across these limbs, using them as pathways. Wind may loosen pieces of moss, sending them down to the ground, where they become part of another layer. Up and down are connected by falling, climbing, rooting, and feeding. The rainforest is vertical, but nothing stays in one layer forever. In the Olympic temperate rainforest, this vertical sharing is part of what makes the ecosystem so full. The canopy catches water for the understory. The understory shelters animals that feed trees through soil. The river brings nutrients from the ocean. The fallen tree feeds the seedling. The fungus feeds the root and is fed in return. Each layer leans on another, quietly and constantly. We pass on, though the word pass hardly fits, because the pace is so slow. The same trunk remains beside us for a long while. The same fern fronds fill the lower view. The same scent of wet wood stays in the air. This kind of movement is almost stillness, and it suits the forest. To hurry here would mean missing the way one drop gathers at the point of a cedar leaf. That cedar leaf, small and scale-like, sheds water differently from the broad leaf of a maple. The maple catches and holds, then releases in larger drops. The cedar divides water into finer threads. The fern beads it along ribs. The moss drinks it into its body. Each surface changes rain into a different sound and timing. Weather becomes music through form. Animals listen to those differences too, though not as we do. Heavy rain may mask sounds for a hunting owl or a mouse. Light rain may bring amphibians out. Dry intervals may send slugs deeper into shelter. Wind may change where birds forage. The forest is full of decisions shaped by moisture, temperature, and cover. What feels like background to us is instruction to others. A rough-skinned newt moving after rain may cross a trail slowly, orange belly hidden against the earth. Its skin contains strong chemical defenses, but we don't dwell on that sharply. We simply let it be a small, deliberate amphibian of wet forests and ponds, walking through a world built for dampness. Its steps are tiny, and each one seems considered. The rain makes passage possible. Tree frogs may cling to leaves or branches, their bodies small enough to fit into the palm of a thought. In the right season, their calls rise from wetlands and wet edges, blending with rain until voice and water seem close. Their eggs, tadpoles, and adult lives tie them to moisture in different ways. The rainforest gives them many thresholds between water and air. Thresholds continue everywhere. The wet bark of a log is one threshold, where fungi meet oxygen. The surface of a stream is another, where insects emerge. The edge of darkness is another, where nocturnal animals begin to move. Our own drifting attention is a threshold too, between waking and sleep, between naming and simply sensing. The forest is a good companion for such crossing. As we stand quietly at this inner edge, the Olympic temperate rainforest seems to breathe slower still. It is not actually slowing for us, of course. Its processes continue at every scale, but our perception has softened enough to feel less separate from them. The drip, the root, the leaf, the stream, and the breath all enter the same unhurried field. A fern tip uncurls somewhere in season. The though too slowly to watch. A mushroom cap widens overnight, a seed coat splits, a salmon embryo develops in gravel. A young owl grows feathers in a cavity or nest site. A cedar root thickens by a measure too small for ordinary noticing. The rainforest is full of movements that become visible only through time. Time here has many lengths. The gnat lives briefly. The fern frond lasts a season. The salmon returns after years in the ocean. The elk follows many seasonal rounds. The cedar may stand for centuries. The valley itself carries older stories in stone and river shape. We let these lengths overlap without ranking them. Brief life and long life both belong. The forest's calm comes partly from this overlap. No single pace dominates. Fast insects feed slow trees. Slow decay feeds quick birds. Seasonal salmon feed long-lived roots. Ancient rain patterns support tonight's slug trail. Everything is moving, but not all at once, and not at the same speed. For a tired listener, that can feel like permission to release the day's narrow tempo. And as release comes, the details grow softer again. The trunks stand like dark pillars. The moss glows faintly even in low light. The river speaks from behind layers of leaf and wood. Somewhere, an owl calls once, and the note travels through moisture until it has no edge left. We do not follow it. We let it become part of the air. The owl's prey may be listening too, small mammals tucked under ferns and logs, aware of sound, scent and cover. Their lives are intimate with the ground. They know the underside of Salal, the corridors beneath sword fern, the spaces under roots where rain does not fall directly. To them, the Olympic temperate rainforest is a ceilinged maze of scent and shelter, close and complete. For insects, the forest is even more detailed. A bark groove may be a passage, a mushroom gill may be a feeding ground, a droplet may be a barrier or a drinking place. A moss stem may be a tree. Scale multiplies habitat. The more closely you imagine the forest, the larger it becomes, until a single fallen branch contains a whole evening of worlds. This is why stillness here never feels empty. It is full of hidden scale. The same damp log can be a bridge for an elk calf, a mountain for a beetle, a nursery for fungi, a seedbed for hemlock, and a cool shelter for salamanders. You can rest with that image for a while. One object, many lives, all held in rain. As the night carries on, the forest floor gathers more fallen drops and released leaves. A maple leaf, if it is autumn, lies against moss with its veins darkening. A hemlock needle settles into a crack in bark. A cedar twig comes to rest at the base of a fern. These small arrivals make no event, yet they are the material from which future soil is made. Quietly, the ground is always being given. In time, the leaf will soften, the needle will fade, and the twig will break. Fungi and invertebrates will enter. Moisture will help loosen tissues. Nutrients will pass into the soil and then into roots. Some part of that fallen leaf may one day become fern, salmonberry, cedar, or fungus. The forest keeps changing names for the same matter. This changing is not hurried by our attention. It will happen while we sleep, while rain crosses the mountains, while rivers move through darkness. It will happen in places no one visits, under logs no one lifts, beneath moss no one names. The thought is deeply restful. The world continues its careful work without needing us to supervise it. And so we follow the careful work a little farther, into a stand where the trunks are spaced like a slow rhythm and the ground is thick with mossy wood. The Olympic temperate rainforest feels especially hushed here, as if the valley has folded around itself. Your imagined footsteps are gone now. There is only the sense of drifting forward, carried by description, rain, and breath. A fallen spruce lies along the ground, its bark sloughing away in plates, its interior softened by years of fungi and weather. Huckleberry grows from its upper surface. A young hemlock stands near the far end. Mushrooms cluster in a seam where wood remains damp. Beetles have written tunnels beneath the bark. The log is no longer only a log. It is a long, low village. If you could look inside without disturbing it, you would find gradients of decay. The outer wood may remain firm in places. The inner wood may crumble like dark sponge. Some pockets hold water. Others hold insect frass, fungal mycelium, or fine roots. Different organisms use different stages, so the log's long decline increases its hospitality. Aging becomes expansion. Many forest creatures use downed wood as travel cover. Salamanders move beneath it. Small mammals pass alongside it. Invertebrates live within it. Birds perch on it to search the ground. Seedlings root on it. Elk may step over it or, if it is low enough, follow its line briefly through the understory. A fallen tree changes the movement of many bodies for many years. The rain on this log sounds duller than rain on leaves. It taps softly, sinks in, and disappears. Moss takes some. Rotten wood takes some. Cracks carry some down into darkness. You can imagine placing your palm above it, not touching, just feeling the coolness that rises. The log is storing weather, holding it for roots, fungi, and small lives through the night. Nearby, a patch of oxalis or other delicate forest herbs may fold its leaves in response to light and moisture. Their thin stems bend easily, and their leaves seem almost translucent in dim green light. They are not the dominant plants, but they brighten the forest floor with tenderness. In a place of giant trees, the small herbs remind us that grace can be low to the ground. In spring, flowers in the rainforest are often modest because sunlight is limited. Pale blooms can catch what light exists and signal to pollinators in the shade. Trillium, foam flowers in the rainforest are often modest because sunlight is limited. Pale blooms can catch what light exists and signal to pollinators in the shade. But the memory of brightness remains. Pollinators in the shade may include flies, bees, beetles, and moths, each responding to scent, color, warmth, and timing. The interactions are specific and varied, though we keep the tone unhurried. A small fly visiting a flower under cedar shade is part of the same living fabric as an elk in a meadow or salmon in a river. Importance does not depend on size. The Olympic temperate rainforest invites that kind of equal attention. It lets the mind move from canopy to mite, from river to droplet, from bare to spore, without changing the level of care. Everything is held by context. Everything touches something else. Even what seems solitary is participating in an exchange, whether through breath, decay, feeding, shelter, or shade. As we continue through the dark green, we come near a place where the trail passes a standing dead tree. Its top is broken and its bark has loosened in long strips. Woodpecker holes mark one side. Moss grows up its base. It no longer carries needles, but it is far from empty. A snag is one of the forest's quiet towers of afterlife. Woodpeckers excavate cavities in softened wood, and many other species may later use those spaces. Small owls, chickadees, squirrels, bats, and insects can all find shelter in standing dead trees, depending on the cavity. The snag also provides perches and feeding sites. Its gradual softening supports fungi and beetles. In death, it remains vertical habitat, offering height to lives that need it. Eventually the snag may fall, becoming downed wood and entering another stage. Then it will shelter ground-dwelling animals, feed decomposers, hold moisture, and perhaps support seedlings. The same tree, over a very long span, may serve canopy birds, cavity nesters, bark insects, fungi, salamanders, and young conifers. A single life becomes many forms of shelter. Standing beside it in the imagination, we can feel how the rainforest handles endings. It does not remove them quickly. It lets them remain useful. It lets structure persist while meaning changes. This can be deeply soothing at night because the forest's version of ending is not a blank space. It is a slow widening into other lives. Rain thickens for a moment, then eases again. The canopy continues its patient sorting of drops. You may feel your own thoughts thinning in a similar way, separating into smaller pieces, then falling away. The forest does not ask you to keep track of every creature now. It only asks, very softly, that you drift with the damp air and remain at ease among the trees. Somewhere close, the wet leaves of salal shift and settle. It may be only water. It may be a mouse. It may be the slow release of a branch. We let it be uncertain. The Olympic temperate rainforest is full of half-known movements, and half-known is enough. The mind can rest without completing every pattern, the way moss rests without knowing the shape of the whole valley. Still, the valley continues beyond us. wide and dark under cloud. Rivers braid through it. Slopes rise from it. Old forests stand in folds where rain lingers. Meadows open where elk graze. Wetlands hold frogs and insects. High branches hold moss and sleeping birds. The place is not a scene but a living breath, and we are moving through only one quiet corridor of it. In that corridor, a Pacific wren may be sleeping in cover, its small body conserving warmth. Birds lower their activity at night, but their presence remains in the shape of nests, droppings, feathers, and remembered songs. A nest tucked in roots or shrubs may have held a brood earlier in the year. Now it may be empty, softening with weather. Even used homes return to the forest. Nests are made from the forest and return to it. Moss, grass, lichen, rootlets, hair, feathers, bark strips and spider silk may all become part of a bird's careful cup. When the season ends, these materials loosen and fall apart. Insects may use them, fungi may enter, rain may press them down. The nest becomes litter, and litter becomes soil. Care becomes compost. That word may sound ordinary, but the process is wondrous. The rainforest is full of care turning into matter, and matter turning into care for other lives. A salmon's body feeds a tree's leaf feeds soil, soil feeds huckleberry feeds bear carries seeds, seeds become shrubs shelter birds carry songs through rain. Nothing stays only itself for long, and as we let that circular movement rock the mind, the forest grows even quieter around the edges. The river is lower in our hearing now, or perhaps we have moved away. The rain is fine and steady. The trunks are dark. The moss is darker. The air tastes faintly mineral, like cold water and stone. You can rest inside this sensory dimness without needing it to brighten. The Olympic temperate rainforest is a place where life often thrives by accepting low light. Shade does not prevent richness here. It shapes it. Plants spread broad leaves or tolerate slow growth. Animals rely on cover and sound. Fungi flourish where sunlight is least important. Streams carry energy from elsewhere. The forest gathers enough from many sources, and its abundance is quiet. This is different from open, sunlit abundance, where flowers and grasses may announce themselves brightly. Here, abundance is layered and subdued. It hides in the mass of moss on a branch, the thickness of duff underfoot, the hidden fry beneath a root wad, the fungal thread inside soil, the elk trail under salmonberry. It is richness with a low voice. A tired mind can trust low voices. They don't pull you upward. They don't demand response. They let you listen without effort. The rainforest's low voice is made from rain, leaves, soft decay, distant water, and the breathing of unseen animals. It keeps speaking whether you follow every word or not. It is enough to be near it in the imagination. And now, moving farther in, we come upon a shallow seep crossing the path, a thin shine of water sliding over dark soil. It is not a stream yet, only water finding a way downward. Moss grows thick along its edges. Tiny plants lean toward it. The mud is smooth where no foot has touched. This small wet line may feed a channel, then a creek, then a river, then the sea. Seeps are easy to overlook, but they matter to many small lives. Amphibians may use the moisture around them. Invertebrates gather where wetness persists. Plants that need constant dampness find refuge there. During dry periods, a seep can keep a narrow ribbon of habitat alive. Water does not need size to be important. Sometimes its quietest appearances are the most faithful. The chemistry of seep water can differ from rainfall or stream water, depending on soil, rock, and organic matter it has passed through. It may carry dissolved minerals, organic acids, or nutrients in subtle amounts. These differences shape small plant communities and microbial life. The forest is sensitive to such subtleties. A few inches of elevation, a little more shade, a little more seepage, and another community begins. You can imagine placing your attention beside that seep and staying there for a long while. A droplet forms at the lip of a moss stem. A small fly lands and lifts off. A thread of water disappears under a leaf. A salamander may pass nearby later, guided by dampness. The scene is tiny, but it has depth enough for an entire night, and as the seep slips away down slope, we follow the idea of water underground, where roots drink and soil pores fill. Beneath the visible forest, there is a dark architecture of channels and spaces. Water films cling to soil particles. Fungal threads bridge gaps. Fine roots explore and branch. Microbes live in the films around grains. The underground world is not empty, it is densely alive. Tree roots do not mirror the branches exactly, but they are just as important to the forest's form. They stabilize trunks, absorb water, store energy, and connect with fungi. In saturated soils, oxygen can become limited, so root placement and soil structure matter greatly. Fallen logs and raised mounds can provide better aerated microsites. Even a seed's landing place can shape the fate of a future tree. Some seeds fall onto bare mineral soil, some onto moss, some into leaf litter, some onto rotten wood. Each surface offers different moisture, nutrients, and risks. Moss may be too dry at the surface in some conditions, while rotten wood may hold water well. Leaf litter may shift or smother. Mineral soil may be exposed only after disturbance. The forest's future begins with many small lotteries, yet the overall feeling is not random. It is patterned by rain, landform, animals, shade, and time. The Olympic temperate rainforest is a tapestry of chance held within conditions. What grows where is partly accident and partly invitation. The tree does not choose the exact place, but the place decides whether the tree can stay. This quiet selection happens everywhere, continuously. As we drift with that thought, the rain lightens, and the drip from the canopy becomes more distinct again. Individual drops fall from high branches at irregular intervals. The sound is spacious, like a clock that has forgotten urgency. One drop lands on a fern, another on wood, another in water, another in soil. Each one joins a different path, and all paths remain part of the forest. A black bear's path through this forest may follow berries in one season and salmon in another. It may dig for roots or insects, turn over logs, or feed in open meadows. When bears carry salmon away from streams, uneaten remains can nourish soil and plants. Insects feed on the remains too, and birds may follow. The bear becomes a mover of nutrients, not by design, but by living. The same is true for eagles and ravens near salmon streams. Bald eagles may feed on fish where rivers open enough for access, and scraps can enter the forest food web. Ravens, gulls near broader river areas, insects and mammals may all participate in the redistribution. The salmon's ocean-grown body becomes many meals, many droppings, many soil changes, many faint traces in wood. Scientists have found marine-derived nutrients in trees near salmon streams in parts of the Pacific Northwest, showing how strongly fish can link ocean and forest. We keep this as a gentle scientific lantern in the dark, illuminating connection without making the scene busy. The idea is simple enough for sleep. A fish returns. A forest is fed. The ocean climbs the roots. In the Olympic temperate rainforest, such connections make the place feel more spacious than its trees alone. The forest includes the mountains that catch rain, the ocean that sends salmon, the rivers that carry them, the fungi that receive fallen wood, and the animals that move between habitats. To ask what lives here is also to ask what passes through, what returns, and what remains hidden. And as we remain hidden with the forest for a while, the night seems to settle closer to the ground. The air between trunks is dark now. The moss is felt more than seen. The river is a low memory of movement. Your breathing may have become slower, and the words may feel like leaves drifting down through the canopy, one by one, without needing to be caught. A deer may step from cover into a small opening, lifting its hooves carefully from wet grass. Its ears turn towards sounds we cannot hear. It lowers its head to browse, then pauses, then browses again. The scene is quiet enough that even chewing seems like part of the rain. We do not approach. We simply allow the animal to have its evening. Nearby shrubs hold the memory of many such feedings. Leaves clipped at certain heights, twigs branched from browsing, paths opened by repeated movement. Plants respond by regrowing, defending, or changing shape. Animals respond to plant chemistry, season, and availability. The relationship is ongoing, neither sentimental nor hostile. It is the long conversation between hunger and growth. Insects also feed on leaves, making tiny holes, mines, galls, and notches. Some are specialists tied to certain plants. Others feed more broadly. Their marks can be read by those who know them, but even without expertise, you can sense that leaves are active surfaces in the forest. They gather light, release water, shelter eggs, host fungi, feed larvae, and fall into soil. A leaf is a world. When leaves fall into streams, aquatic insects may shred them, and microbes begin to condition them for feeding. The energy of the forest enters the water not only through salmon, but through leaf litter and wood. Headwater streams shaded by canopy often depend heavily on this falling material. The boundary between forest and stream is therefore porous, with food dropping steadily from branch to current. This makes the stream not separate, but inward-facing. Like a vein through the forest body, it carries water, organisms, dissolved nutrients, bits of leaf, fragments of wood, and the scent pathways salmon follow. Its banks are roots, moss, mud, and stone. Its surface receives rain and falling insects. It speaks in a low voice that changes with channel shape and flow. And as the stream speaks somewhere beyond sight, we pass another nurse log. This one so covered in moss that its original bark has almost vanished. Small hemlocks grow along its ridge in a row. Their roots descend on either side, reaching for earth below. They stand close together now, but over time some may outgrow others. Some may die, and one or two may remain. The forest practices patience even in competition. Competition for light can be intense in a shaded forest, but it does not always look dramatic. It may appear as slow growth, slight leaning, suppressed seedlings waiting below, branches dying back where shade is too deep. Trees adjust their shapes to openings and neighbors. The canopy is a record of many quiet contests and accommodations, written in wood over decades. Facilitation is present too. A nurse log helps seedlings establish. Fungi help roots gather nutrients. Moss helps retain moisture. Alder can enrich soil. Large trees buffer microclimate below. The rainforest is not explained by competition alone, nor by cooperation alone. It is the mingling of both, softened by time until the result feels like a single continuous fabric. You can rest in that fabric now, letting the words move the way rain moves over branches. Not every detail needs to stay distinct. The elk trail, the salmon stream, the mossy canopy, the slug's path, the fungal thread, and the cedar root can begin to overlap. They are all ways the forest continues. They are all ways life finds room in wet shade. The Olympic temperate rainforest holds room for large-bodied quiet, small-bodied quiet, rooted quiet, flowing quiet, and hidden quiet. It holds the breath of mammals, the song of birds, the pulse of amphibian skin, the chemistry of fungi, the slow drinking of moss. It holds movement without hurry and density without noise. That is why the place feels so suited to sleep. As we move deeper still, the trail becomes almost a suggestion. In the imagination, we don't need to follow it exactly. We can drift alongside it, over moss and between trunks, leaving nothing pressed down behind us. The forest remains whole, the rain continues, the animals continue, the unseen lives continue. We are only a gentle awareness passing through, softer than fog. Fog itself may gather before dawn, though dawn is still far away in the feeling of this passage. It collects in low places, blurring the bases of trees and turning distant trunks pale. Water droplets suspend in air, touching moss and needles without falling at once. Fog is rain that has not decided to land. The rainforest receives it with every surface. In fog, spiderwebs become visible again, each strand lined with beads. Lichens swell slightly with moisture. Moss brightens. Bark darkens. Birds may remain tucked in roosts until light changes. Amphibians may continue moving if temperatures suit them. The whole forest seems to inhale cloud. drawing the sky down into its branches and holding it there as breath. The Olympic temperate rainforest is one of the places where cloud, tree, river, and ground feel especially close. The sky does not stay far above. It comes down as mist and rain, sits on branches, enters soil, and runs under roots. You can feel that closeness as a gentle lowering of the world. Nothing is distant. Everything leans toward contact. This contact is physical and constant. Water touches bark, roots touch fungus, hooves touch mud, feathers touch moss in a nest, salmon bodies touch gravel, slug bodies touch leaves, beetle mandibles touch wood. The forest is made of countless soft contacts, most of them unseen, all of them contributing to the shape of life here. And as the words continue like rain through leaves, we stay with those contacts, letting them become slower and less separate. A cedar root curves through soil. A fern frond rests above it. A drop slides from fern to root. A springtail moves in the wet film below. A fungal thread crosses a grain of sand. A tree far above draws the result upward into green needles, and the dark forest keeps breathing around it. The breathing of the forest becomes the last thing you need to follow, softer now than any trail, quieter than the river behind the trees. Rain gathers on cedar, slips through moss, and reaches the ground in scattered drops, each one arriving without hurry. Around you, the Olympic temperate rainforest holds its hidden lives close, not to conceal them, but simply because shadow and shelter are part of how this place rests. You can let the names loosen now, until elk, salmon, wren, slug, fern, and cedar become one slow feeling of green. The ground receives everything gently. A leaf settles against a root. A bead of water disappears into moss. Somewhere beneath the softened wood, fungi continue their patient work, and somewhere under the fern cover, a small animal curls into the dark warmth of its own body. The forest does not need to become silent to become peaceful. Its quiet is made of tiny sounds, each one rounded by rain, each one falling back into the same deep stillness. You rest with the old trees, with their roots in wet earth, and their branches holding cloud. Above them, the night is low and grey. Below them, the soil is cool, layered, and alive. Nothing here asks you to look harder now. Nothing asks you to keep moving. The rainforest can go on breathing without your attention, and you can let yourself become as still as a stone under moss, as unhurried as water finding its way through darkness. Far beyond the trunks, the river keeps its slow path toward the sea, carrying rain from the mountains through roots, gravel, and shadow. Here, beneath the hanging moss, the forest floor is soft with years of fallen leaves, and the ancient damp settles around every living thing. You have come to rest in the rain-dark green, where the cedar scent lingers. The hidden lives continue quietly, and the night closes over the Olympic temperate rainforest, like a cool hand laid gently on the earth.